Welcome to this episode of Our College Your Voices. I am your host, Kara Monroe. At Ivy Tech, we have many helper programs whose graduates go on to serve in our communities. On the Evansville campus, one of those is the Paramedic Science Program. Program Chair Chuck Dietrick teaches the students, coaches them through their testing, and prepares them for the challenges that they may face in the real world. We have two graduates of the program as guests today. Matt graduated last year as an outstanding graduate in the Paramedic Science Program, earning an Associate of Applied Science degree, and presented the 2020 graduation address to his fellow classmates by video because of COVID-19. Matt was already working as an EMT during COVID for American Medical Response in the Evansville area and continued with them after graduation. Stacey graduated in 2014 with a certificate in emergency medical training and was working in this area as an EMT as well when she heard the call to action to help out in the ambulance run overwhelmed COVID-ravaged New York City area in March and April. Matt has already accomplished one of his goals post-graduation, that of becoming a deputy coroner. Stacey has her eyes set on eventually becoming a flight nurse on emergency flights. She is working toward her Associate of Applied Science in Paramedic Science currently. Let's meet today's guests. First up is Chuck Dietrick. Hi, Chuck.
Hi, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing excellent.
Chuck, tell us just a little bit more about yourself than what we got just in that brief intro.
So I have been the director of the paramedic program at Ivy Tech since 2012. Prior to that, I did some things in the private sector. I'm retired military, spent 24 years spent one tour in Afghanistan. My entire life's been in emergency service, law enforcement, fire service, and now emergency medicine. Culminating the career, I think, with helping the new generation of EMTs and paramedics become what they want to be. And that brings us to our presentation today. And Matt Kohl is living proof that we are actually running a very successful program.
Absolutely. And Chuck, thank you for your service to our country and your service to all of our communities. That means a lot to all of us. And so let's meet Matt Kohl. Hi, Matt.
Good morning.
We heard just a little bit about you in my intro, but tell us a little bit more about you if you don't mind.
Well, you cover the high notes. Started my career in EMS a short 5 years ago as an EMT. From there, I've been on the ambulance full-time as a frontline 911 worker, mainly in service to the city of Evansville. Not a whole lot of volunteer time, so pretty much all on the ambulance. With Chuck last year, I was licensed as a paramedic, and from there, I've moved up to an operations supervisor position with AMR here in Evansville. So climbed the ladder fairly quickly. I spent about 10 years with the National Guard. Other than that, it's really just bouncing between the ambulance and the coroner, which is something that I'd wanted to do since I started medic school. It's a lot of work and keeping up with my two young kids.
Very good. And thank you for your service as well. National Guard is incredibly important too. So thank you so much for that. And Stacey Steele is joining us. Hi, Stacey.
Hi, Kara.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Right now, I am a full-time EMT at AMR Evansville. So we are the Vanderburgh County Ambulance Company. You'll see us around town if you live here in Evansville. I've been an EMT for 6 years now. I really love it. I enjoy it a lot. I've worked in several of the ERs before I came to pre-hospital care, but this is where I'm the happiest. So it's where I'm going to end up staying.
Excellent. Excellent. We're so excited to have you with us today. All right. So Chuck, I'm going to ask you to give us just a little bit more of a description of the paramedic program at the Evansville campus, just to ground everybody in what that program entails.
Okay, so we are one of several campuses in the Ivy Tech network that offers the Paramedic Science Program. We offer two options. We offer the Associate of Applied Science, which the gross majority of our students follow. We also offer a technical certificate in paramedic science that allows students who already have a degree to get their paramedic science certification so that they can sit for the National Registry licensing exam. Our program is approximately 22 months. We go 5 straight semesters. We start in the fall and we go all the way through to the spring of the following year, 2 years. And as Matt can attest to, it's even though it sounds like 22 months is a long time, it's like putting 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. So our students are put through a pretty rigorous curriculum. At the end, we enjoy approximately an 80% pass rate on the National Registry exam. Well, the state and national standard is about 70%. So we enjoy a little higher percentage of pass rate. And I attribute that mostly to the students themselves and my faculty. It brings out the best in the best. So we enjoy that. Prior to getting into the paramedic program, we have to be an EMT, as Matt was before he joined the program. And we also have to go through some prerequisites, which includes college level anatomy and physiology, which for those of you that have not enjoyed that wonderful experience, it is kind of the gateway to the program. It kind of weeds out those who really don't want it or don't want to work for it. So that's our program in a nutshell.
Stacey, why did you choose the paramedic field?
After a little bit of being an EMT, I'd kind of decided that I wanted to further myself with my ability to help people in the pre-hospital setting. I had originally looked at nursing, and after working as an EMT for so long, I just realized that pre-hospital emergency medicine is just really where I belong.
And what do you like most about this career field?
I enjoy the ability to grow. There's also a lot of coworkers and peers and different resources there that can help enable you as a person. It's all kind of like a big family. I know that sounds cliche, but it really is. Once you get into the pre-hospital EMS, whether it's fire department or first responders or on an ambulance, anything like that, it's really gratifying.
Anybody that gets into this line of work, we have a running joke. Nobody grows up wanting to be a paramedic. We all just happen to stumble upon it. I think half of my class that are actually licensed and practicing are still not really sure what program they signed up for. And Chuck said it best when he said that the program is kind of set to weed out some of the people that are just there to kind of check a block and get some letters after their name. EMS as a whole, not just the Ivy Tech program, is the kind of thing that you have to be there because you want to be. And oftentimes you'll join for one reason, and the further down the rabbit hole you go, you'll find new reasons every day that you chose the field for. I find myself coming up with new reasons, even every shift. So it's born in a desire to help, and it just kind of spreads from there. It's a love of the puzzle that is emergency medicine.
So Matt, you gave a great segue into my next question. And Chuck, I'd love to hear this from you too, but Matt, we'll start with you. What do you like most about the career field?
A lot of jobs you'll hear the idiom, no two calls are the same, and no profession is truer than EMS. You never really know what you're walking into. And not only is no two contacts the same, no two problems or questions or patients, but on top of that, sometimes what you're walking into is not really what you're walking into. I know I referenced earlier, and of course I can't go into any sort of detail, but Chuck and I had one of those last night. We got told A and we very much so walked into B. I love that. I love that brain challenge. I love having to rely on myself and my peers and other professional first responders, being that lily pad, being that link between somebody who's having the worst day of their life and the help that they need.
Chuck, what about you?
Well, that's a tough act to follow. Matt says Matt expresses himself very well. The only thing I can add to that is what he alluded to in a previous segment, and that is a desire to serve. Again, people get into this for various reasons, but at the end of the journey, if you're not there because you feel a calling to help somebody who probably needs your help, then you're not in the right career field. And we find that people get into this career field, and after a period of time, for various reasons, they discover that the call to serve is not really why they're there. And those folks generally fall by the wayside for whatever reason. So that, and the other thing is you have to be what we call a type A personality. You have to be someone who thrives on the edge, enjoys a little bit of an adrenaline push, because again, if you're not of that type, this career field can certainly consume you. You have to be aggressive, forward thinking, and as Matt said, be able to think on your feet quickly.
As a student at Ivy Tech, what activities did you seek out, and beyond that too, to expand your career potential?
So there are several different courses after I've gotten my EMT that I kind of looked for. Depending on who you work under, you can have different sets of skills. So I studied a little bit under orthopedics in an emergency room, urology in an emergency room, and different courses that are offered to us as EMTs and paramedics, such as pre-hospital trauma life support and other courses and certifications like that can kind of almost be a refresher whenever you've been doing it a while.
Obviously, in my line of work, communication is very important, whether it's communication with other professionals or communication with the patient. So I found myself really trying to capitalize on the things that were offered as far as communication. So I know we had, I personally took Spanish. It's kind of a growing demographic in our region. And there's nothing worse than going to help somebody who doesn't speak a whole lot of English. So having even what I call toddler Spanish, that little rudimentary foot in the door, it can bring a lot of comfort to the individual that you're dealing with. And it can give you a certain sense of confidence in your ability to execute what you're there to do. And then, of course, I took other communications courses, because if you can't take what you're thinking and put it into some sort of digestible language for who you're trying to communicate with, you've lost from the get-go.
You've obviously been on the front lines during the pandemic, and Stacey, you specifically, you went above and beyond here. I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience just working during the pandemic, and specifically for you working in New York City during the pandemic, and what took you there.
I was deployed for 36 days with FEMA, so the Federal Emergency Management, to New York City. I was stationed in Harlem, in the heart of it. So it was one of the busier areas in New York whenever we were all sent out there. It was something that I'd been wanting to do for a little bit, be part of a disaster relief. I wasn't really sure when and where, but when the opportunity came up, this was the one that I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this. Whenever you see community kind of hurting and you think about your own community and how you would hope that more people would come to help you, I think that really kind of pushed me to go even more.
So Matt, we talked just a little bit about what you're doing now, but what are your future goals? What else do you want to accomplish?
EMS is such an interesting profession in that it's, relatively speaking, it's still in its infancy. Modern day application of the actual job itself hasn't really been what you see today for more than, I'd say, several decades. I have the unique ability, just given where I'm at, Evansville in particular, it's a bit of a hub. It's a growing city, and as time progresses, it's becoming more and more of a model city that, the rest of the country is beginning to kind of shape itself after. I, just because of what I like and what professionally I'd like to see myself become, have positioned myself to where I have a front row seat to shaping EMS as a profession in the city of Evansville, and really just finding better ways to do that, to keep my colleagues safe, to keep the general public provided, and really just set up future generations of this profession for success.
After paramedicine, I'd like to get a bachelor's degree in something. I don't really know what yet. So it's one day at a time. Maybe emergency management. We'll see what happens. But I'd like to be a paramedic for a couple years and get some experience under my belt working with more pre-hospital medications and stuff as the person in charge.
I heard a rumor you might be interested in flight nursing too.
We'll see what happens here in Evansville, at least. And I mean, most of the surrounding states, Illinois and Kentucky and stuff, whenever you go to do a flight team for first responders, you can be a nurse or a paramedic, just depending on how much experience you have in emergency medicine. So if I can be a flight medic, I'd enjoy that a lot. But maybe eventually, if I have to get my nursing, I will.
All right. Very good. Very good. I didn't know that. So I learned something today. That's cool. Thank you for explaining that to me. As you think about other students who might be considering paramedic as a field, what advice would you give to them?
This is not for the faint of heart. Paramedicine is not a part-time job. EMS is not something that you do because it just looks fun on TV. Chuck said it earlier, those that aren't here for the right reasons, this business will chew them up and it will spit them back out. And that's fine. Even if you're here for a short time, we appreciate, whatever help we can get. But for those that want to get into this field, my advice is more caution than anything else. This is a significant job. You will see things that will change the way you see the world. And it's important to steel yourself to make sure that you have that genuine desire to help. Because if you come into this field with anything less, you're going to find disappointment and you may even get yourself hurt. But at the risk of that coming out very gloom and doom, this is a very rewarding field. And anybody that wants to come out, we're a family. And when you join our ranks, we take care of our own. So even if you come in looking for one thing and find that you're looking for something else entirely different, I love the fact that my colleagues have helped me the same way I'd like to think that I've helped other people. We're going to help you along the way. We work hard, but we play hard. So anybody thinking that they want to come into the field of EMS, come on down.
Chuck, anything you'd add to that?
I think Matt said it very succinctly. There's some downsides to this, but when you hold the newborn baby that you delivered in the back of the ambulance, you've resuscitated somebody who 20 minutes before was dead on their living room floor. That's what makes this job worthwhile. And we don't do it for the glory, or we don't do it for the, hey, look at me. We do it for the fact that there's a family now that has a new baby. There's a family that has a loved one who is going to walk out of that hospital because we were able to do the things we do and do them correctly and be at the right place at the right time. So if that doesn't get you, then by golly, I don't know what would.
That is outstanding. What advice would you give to a student who feels like they can't go to college or that they can't make it in college?
Whether you start now or you don't start now, in 2 years, you're either going to have done it or you aren't. So it's one of those things that if you're looking for something that can give you an extra edge in your career and also help further you as a person, I think that there are lots of different certificates that Ivy Tech offers, as well as 2-year degrees for associate's degrees, if that's something that you're looking for.
So start now.
Yeah. It's not wasting time. It doesn't matter how old you are, just start now.
Well, if you are interested in a career in the paramedic field, as you know, if you're a regular listener, we end every episode with a call to action. So we will link to more information about our paramedic programs at Ivy Tech, as well as our beautiful Evansville campus in our show notes. So be sure to check that out. We would love to have you learn more about those programs. I want to thank you again for joining this episode of Our College, Your Voices, and I especially want to thank the members of my panel today, Chuck Dietrick, who's instructor of Paramedic Science and Program Chair at the Evansville campus, Matt Kohl, who is a paramedic and a 2020 Paramedic Science AAS graduate, and Stacey, Steele, EMT and 2014 EMT certificate graduate. I'm your host, Kara Monroe. You can connect with me on Twitter at KNM Tweets. Our producer is Sarah Ferguson. You can reach us by email at ourcollegeyourvoices@ivytech.edu. Don't forget, if you're an Ivy Tech faculty or staff member, you can join our Microsoft Teams listener community. Instructions on how to do that will come out every Thursday. Our website, where you'll find links to our show notes and more, is ivytech.edu/podcast. Production assistance for this and every episode provided by Becky Campbell and the Ivy Tech Community College Creative Services team, and our podcast concept is by Matthew Pittman. Theme music and post-production services provided by Jen Eads at the Brassy Broadcasting Company. We will talk to you next time on Our College, Your Voices.